Hey guys, Chris Horwedel here, and I wanted to give you a big, heartfelt thank you from all of us here at Underdog for continuing to listen to our shows. It really means a lot. We really do appreciate it. Now, with that said, I wanted to ask you a really small favor, but it's an important one. The copy says it's going to take a couple of minutes. I've done it. It's actually going to take closer to 10, give or take 2 minutes either way. But if you're one of the first people to do it, Podcast One is going to make it worth your time, quite literally. What I ask from you, hat in hand, begging at your feet, is that you complete a short survey for us, because the information you can give us can help make things better for the show and, for you as a listener as well. What you do is you go to podcastone.com/survey and everything's going to be right there for you. That's podcastone.com/survey. The first 250 people who complete the survey are going to get a $10 gift card from Amazon.com, and 2 grand prize winners are going to be selected at random to get a $100 gift card. How about that? The opportunity for free money just for helping us out a little bit. As you'd imagine, our shows are of course supported by advertisers, so filling this out for us is really going to help us cater to the needs of you as a listener and to keep doing this. And to keep putting this out for free. We don't believe in the Patreon model. We don't want to do that. We don't want to put anything behind a paywall. We just want to be able to deliver the best possible ads to you guys, so you might be interested in it. And I hear what you're thinking in your mind. You're thinking, I don't want to be on some email list. Look, I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I do know that I've taken the survey, and you can skip putting your email address in at the end if you don't want to be part of these surveys and you just want to help us out. Just click the submit button a couple of times until you get to the end of the survey. You'll be able to, I promise. You're going to hit a couple of pages of questions asking you which podcasts you listen to. And we've got a bunch in there, so please make sure you check all of the Underdog podcasts that you listen to. In order, I think they're Create Your Shot, Functional Sportsaholic, Get Paid, Hall of Justice, the Underdog Sports Fantasy Hour, the Underdog Sports NBA Show, the Underdog Sports NFL Show, and You're Wrong and Here's Why. Plus, also click any other Podcast One shows that you listen to. So please do go to podcastone.com/survey. That's podcastone.com/survey. You're going to answer some questions, and potentially you can get the Amazon gift card if you want to enter your email address, or just help us out if you don't. Thank you so much for being a dedicated listener, and now let's get to the show.
We might be Underdog Sports, but we came here to win. The most legit podcast, that's why we know you're tuning in. We cover the biggest news, we underdogs, but we can't lose. So trust the process, yes you, cause we got Chris and Anshu to bless you. With the best features, best stories, we diving deep like a Lambo leap. Wake up kid and stop snoring, we on point just like this beat. Bring the passion like the dog pound, in the cold get a gold brand. Sit back and raise the cat, cause we start this show like right now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Underdog. I'm Chris Horwedel, joined by Anshu Khanna. Anshu?
Chris?
Come on! I gave you room!
I knew you were. I mean, you can't... Look, part of the joy of this whole thing that we have going on is me interjecting ruthlessly. But no, I appreciate it. I still jumped in. It just took a few seconds.
That's fine. No one will ever know. It's going to be fixed in post. It's going to be like you answered immediately. Everything sounds great. So we've got a lot going on the sports calendar today. October 22nd is both the first day of the Major League Baseball World Series and the first day of the NBA regular season. Not to mention we're about midway through the National Football League schedule. I am told hockey is currently ongoing. I have no way of really knowing other than my good friend Greg Crone's texts about how he jumped on the Flyers bandwagon too soon. I don't know. Maybe not. I tell him anytime he says anything about hockey, I say you should do what the rest of America has done and pretend like hockey doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, all but like a few towns, I guess. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm surprised, especially during the Stanley Cup final. I guess people kind of latch on, but it's hard to get into it right now for sure.
Do you feel like there's a decently large overlap on the Venn diagram of hockey fans and wrestling fans? Because I feel like there is.
Yeah, I could see that. At the risk of sound of
I've already done it. Don't worry about
yeah,
it.
you've already done it. Yes, I do believe that there's a sizable overlap in that Venn diagram.
Hey, and as a child, I was a very, very big wrestling fan. I loved it every Saturday morning. Couldn't wait. And
Oh
then,
yeah.
then I got to be. Look, I have alienated enough people for this show so far. In these first 2 minutes, I'm gonna leave that alone. Let's talk World Series baseball. We fallen into a pattern of not talking enough about Major League Baseball, despite the fact that I think it's interesting to both you and I, especially the nuances. I'll tell you what, baseball to me, most boring sport to watch, maybe the most interesting sport when it comes to how you actually come to get the 25 people who are playing on the Major League roster.
Oh yeah, that's why you have those. What are those leagues called that you do? The roster resource or whatever it is.
I'm in a hardball dynasty sim league. Yes, hardball dynasty. Come
Yeah, I
play
mean,
in my
that's
league,
why-
ladies and gentlemen. I'm rebuilding. If you're looking, I don't want to brag. Don't want to brag. Won 3 of the last 4 World Series. Team,
Wow.
pretty strong. That's what happens when you're willing to just be terrible for 5 years and accumulate high draft picks. But
Yeah, I think there's a commentary about tanking in there somewhere.
for sure, it's only successful and everyone loves you for it. But yeah, no, that's not true. I can attest to that. But I'm trying to rebuild. I'm trying to break up my team right now, and it's difficult because I think much like the trap we fall into in sports in general is that teams tend to wildly overrate, and this is how I'm taking it away from Hardball Dynasty and into actual sports. Teams tend to overrate their own players. I've got an MVP of our league who is a 90 overall. And people won't trade me like their 4th best prospect for him.
Yeah, I think that many of our listeners are probably fantasy football players and are encountering the same kind of issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. I think we need to have a better outlook on these things. I think it's tough because I fall victim to these same things with the 76ers and in the Phillies to an extent, less so with the Eagles young players because that's not really a trade-based league prior to this season, but overvaluing those guys way too much. Markelle Fultz is a key example. It's crazy to me looking back at it in retrospect that there was a moment in my mind where I was reticent to give up Markelle Fultz in a Kawhi Leonard trade.
I know. Yeah. Well, obviously hindsight's 2020 there, but yeah, I mean it's kind of what you talked about last week, which is people are just enamored with the idea of the surprise package, right, rather than the actual piece, the tangible piece. So I kind of understand, especially when it's as interesting and nuanced as Fultz was at that time, and yeah, I mean the thing is with Kawhi it was just the 1-year rental. Now, obviously, you would have won the NBA championship in that scenario, but that I digress because at that time you wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, would have been great to win a championship, but hey, there's always this year, and I can't imagine we're not going to win. But look, we're going to talk about the NBA a little bit later in the show. As I said, it is Game 1 of the World Series tonight, 8:08 Eastern Time. The Washington Nationals at the Houston Astros. Just give me your overall thoughts. How surprised are you that these are the two teams that are squaring off for the World Series?
I mean, over the course of the season, that shock would have changed over time, right? Like, I mean, There was a time, obviously, early in the season where the Nats were not this team, and the thing is, though, over the last 3 years, they've always sort of been in that conversation when you have Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin. Which I guess was just this year, but specifically those first 2 and the hitters that they do, I think that, the possibility is obviously always there. Putting it all together has been a real challenge for them in the Baker and Davey Martinez eras. But, now that it's all come together, I can't say it's overly surprising within the last month that they're the team. I mean, obviously everyone assumed that the Dodgers were likely to be it, but failing that, I mean, the Nats are right there as the second best. And yeah, obviously the Astros have been the odds-on favorite throughout the last 3 years. So differing levels of surprise, but especially once they trade for Zach Greinke, it was basically all over for Houston and for anyone else.
Well, I think the crazy thing about this Washington team, and this sort of goes to what we were talking about before, and maybe they made the right decision. They have such an incredible abundance of young talent. It just seems like they are set up to, they're set up to be here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think part of it hinges on what they do with Rendon, but also like even failing that, like they've got so many good young players, right? I mean, Soto and Trey Turner and Victor Robles and others, but and they've already forked over the money to Scherzer and Corbin, so those guys are going to be there for the long haul. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you, but that being said, if you keep Rendon, I think that takes you to that next pantheon of contenders, of potentially perennial contenders with this team.
Absolutely. All right, so let's look at these teams individually. Anshu Khanna, what do the Washington Nationals have to do to win this series?
Man, I mean, I think that their bullpen needs to pitch well because Scherzer is going to give you at least two good games, assuming they don't get swept. And I think you can pretty much assume that Steven Strasburg, for all of his failings over these years or thoughts that maybe he's a bust, I mean, he has been an absolute lights out postseason pitcher. So if he is just that, then if those two guys are just themselves, the back of the baseball card, then I think that they're going to be able to hold up and keep this close. The issue I think goes when you drift into that bullpen and there's Sean Doolittle and Daniel Hudson, and that's pretty much it for them. And often we see in these playoffs that someone rises to the occasion. I think they're going to need both those guys and more, whether it's Austin Voth or one of these other guys to really step up because they're a more traditional team in terms of just rolling those starters out and trying to minimize bullpen use. But if they're not good because they're not going to be able to throw complete games every single game. This Astros team will capitalize, and I have a feeling a lot of these games are going to be lower scoring.
We've talked at length about how broken the Major League Baseball draft is, and perhaps the accidental greatest beneficiaries of that, I would argue all time, are these Houston Astros. In 2012, they decide not to take the higher-ranked guys like Byron Buxton and Kevin Gausman and Mark Appel in his second year, Lucas Giolito. Instead, they opt for, and I know Giolito was hurt, they opt for the significant underslot signing of Carlos Correa, a guy who was looked at as, one of the 5 or 10 best players in the draft, but certainly not the best. And that allows them to go and take some other guys a little bit later on, specifically Lance McCullers with an overslot in the supplemental round. And boy, Correa looks like the absolute star of that draft. They accidentally got it right, and they get the bonus of McCullers in addition to that. What do these Houston Astros have to do to win this World Series?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great call on their process and how it's dictated the way the rest of the league drafts. Yeah, I mean, McCullers isn't a part of this right now, but he's certainly played a big role in their success over the years. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, really good point. Correa only 24. We talked about the youth of the Nationals, and obviously the Astros certainly have that as well, if not more so. But yeah, I mean, if for the Astros to win, they basically just have to be themselves. I mean, just look at this lineup. It's absolutely absurd. Bregman and Springer and Brantley and Yordan Alvarez, who's a little bit cold right now, but still obviously an immense talent as a rookie. Jose Altuve, who delivered the killing blow, and then Yuli Gurriel has been good this year. Didn't even mention Correa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're loaded. And then by the way, they have Kyle Tucker and Derek Fisher off the bench, of which almost any team would love to have those two. So as prospects, and then of course they got Cole and Verlander and Greinke, and it's just so, and the analytics on their side. I just, they're such a stacked, awesome team that it's going to take the absolute best from a very good Nationals team to beat them. So I would say they just basically have to be the Astros, and then the Nationals have to raise their game a ton to beat them.
What's your prediction for where Garrett Cole is playing baseball next year?
That's a really good question. It sounds like he's likely to play out west, where he's from, where he likes. So I think the Angels are probably a pretty good bet if they're able to carve out the money for him, and especially considering they're investing in Joe Madden. Yeah, I mean, that's my guess. I'm guessing it's the Angels. I think that there will be other teams that are willing to throw the money at him. I don't think that I don't know if you saw, but Jeff Passan predicted 8 years for 250 million.
My God.
Not seeing that for a pitcher that's what? How old is he? 26, 28. So that's yeah, I think that's a lot for a right-handed starter. Although if you look across the diamond, you've got a guy in Max Scherzer, who has been more than worth the money at a similar age. So,
Mm.
but I just don't think Cole's got the track record to throw all that money at him, especially when you think of how good the Astros have been with these pitchers.
Do you think there's any chance that the Dodgers are a team that maybe gets creative like they have in the past for some of these trades, clears some room with, there's been rumblings of moving on from Clayton Kershaw, and then goes and throws all of that money at Garrett Cole as a replacement?
It's absolutely possible. And then, like you said, last year it looked like they were carving out money for a run at Harper or Machado, probably Harper, and they didn't end up doing that, but they did carve out enough to give a ton of money to AJ Pollock. So I wouldn't put anything past Andrew Friedman and those guys because they know how to move money around, and their system is so freaking good that they can use those pieces to get out from under bad deals. And yeah, I mean, when you look at the Dodgers rotation, I mean, it is not a youth-based or
No.
team. I mean, they've obviously got Walker Buehler, but yeah, I mean, everyone else is older. Rich Hill's, I believe, a free agent this year. Ross Stripling's always hurt. He's not that good. Kenta Maeda, same kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, if they can get out from Kershaw, then it really opens up. But even with Kershaw, I don't think they're signed. He's locked in for like a really long time. So that's an interesting thought.
That team just they seem to be in play anytime there is any significant free agent available. They're kind of the Yankees-esque, Lakers-esque. I guess it's just the big market teams. But let's say I were to give you California versus the field in where Cole will be playing baseball next year. Where are you putting your money?
I'm putting on California just because I think that the teams that are willing to pay up silly money on Cole, I mean, I don't think the Yankees would do it. I mean, they were in the Corbin conversation, but they're a different team now, and they are so screwed with that Stanton deal for so long that I just don't. I mean, obviously they're the Yankees; they can pay whatever to whoever with impunity, but I think
Right.
it's going to be a problem for them to do something like that. So I would take the California teams.
All right, what is your official prediction for the 2019 Major League Baseball World Series? Who's going to win? How many games?
I think it's going to be a really good series. I think the Nationals, because they can roll Strasburg and Scherzer and Corbin 6 games out of 7, I mean, that's a really great opportunity. And then if you get to game 7, you can probably throw all 3 of them. But that being said, I just think the Astros are way too good, and I'm going to say Astros in 6. I think that they're just a little bit better, but they're just a little bit better in so many ways that I think it adds up.
All right, well, it's going to be.
I want to pick the Nationals. They're a good opponent for sure.
I don't want to pick. First, I always forget Houston's an AL team. I don't know why. It's a weird blind spot in my brain. I think they're an NL team. And then I'm consistently surprised literally every single time that I see that they're in the American League. But I can't root for I can't root for the Nationals. There's too much there. They're going to be a thorn in our side for far too long.
Oh yeah.